All right, welcome everybody. Here we are in Science and Faith class. And Sammy, have we got a great guest speaker coming to talk with us today, okay? So before we start that, I want to talk a little bit about a passage from the New Testament, from the book of Matthew, okay? So we know about this Jesus. And what are some of the things that Jesus did? Sammy and your mom, can you think of what are some of the things that Jesus did when he was alive?
He was good to his people.
He was good to his people. Okay. Anything else?
You say one.
Would you want to give a story?
Okay. He taught stories. He preached sermons, and he also healed people. He healed.
Yeah.
There we go.
Right. So today we're going to hear about how Jesus healed a little boy, and that boy actually, according to the Bible, he had a demon. Okay, he had a demon in him. So we're going to read about that, and let's read that. So I'm going to bring it up, Sammy. If you're comfortable, you can read this.
Okay.
All right. So from the book of Matthew, and if you could read the heading first, the title, and then move on. Okay.
Jesus heals a boy with a demon. When they returned to the crowd, a man came to Jesus, kneeled before him, and said, "Sir,
Sir, have mercy on my son." Okay.
Yeah.
He is epileptic and has such terrible attacks. He often falls in the fire or into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but they cannot heal him. Jesus answered, "How unbelievably and wrong your people are. How long must I stay with you? How long do I have to put up with you? Bring the boy here to me." Jesus gave a command to the demon, and it went out of the boy, and at that very moment he was healed.
All right, great job. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Sammy. Okay, so a demon. What is a demon? When you think of a demon, what do you think about? Okay.
An angry person.
An angry person, okay, or an evil spirit, okay. So the people thought that this little boy was possessed. Have you ever heard of someone being possessed by a demon or a spirit? Okay, maybe you've seen it on some horror movies where a person they do things they don't want to do because their body is being overtaken by an evil spirit. Okay, so that's what a demon is, a spirit that's taking over. And can you remember from the story, what did the demon make the boy do?
He made him fall into the water and fire.
Well, fall into the water and fire. Okay. All right. How do you think parents would feel if their son would just shake violently and fall over and sometimes fall into water or into the fire? How do you think the parents might feel about that?
Bad.
Okay. Do you think they'd be afraid?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And they're like, what are we going to do? Because they didn't understand it. All right. And then as you're reading, so these parents would bring this boy to Jesus and say, "Jesus, help us. He's possessed by a demon." And then there was a word in the reading, and it's a strange word, and you had a little struggles with it. I remember the first time I saw it too. And it's right here. Can you see this? Epileptic. Yeah. Epileptic. Okay. Epileptic. Can you tell me, and do you have any idea what that might be? Or what's another word? Epileptic, or is somebody with epilepsy? Have you ever heard of epilepsy? Nope. Okay. Well, guess what? Guess what, Sammy? We have just the person to talk about epilepsy here today. Okay. Ooh. So I'm going to introduce you to the man named Dr. Shaw, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he did for a living before he was retired, okay? Because he knows a lot about epilepsy. So, Dr. Shaw, the table is yours. Tell us who you are and what you did for a living.
Hi, Sammy.
Hi.
Hi. I have been trained in a branch of medicine called neurology, which means some learning about nerves, and that includes the brain. So, and epilepsy is.
Oh, we lost him for a little bit.
His internet's kind of bad.
Right. We'll wait a little bit. He'll come back.
Yeah.
Here he comes.
Shall I talk or?
Yep, you.
Okay.
You're back.
So, okay. Another word for that is seizure disorder. And the kind of seizures that the Bible is talking about is a big seizure that is used to have the name grand mal, which means jerking and stiffening and unconsciousness. And it looks very dramatic. And people who are watching these seizures often are afraid that the person is going to die. It's that dramatic. So in addition to what you guys talked about, what Jeff Robb said is that people would be afraid. They also, over the centuries since the Bible was written, have stayed away from people with epilepsy because they didn't understand it. And so over the last 200 years, people have started to understand epilepsy, that it's really not being possessed by a demon, but it's a medical problem that we can do something about. And today, epilepsy is really highly treatable with some medications, preferably medications, but sometimes surgical procedure, or even putting something on the body or even into the body to treat seizures in rare cases. So it's a very treatable disorder. Now, this gives me an opportunity to talk about how the brain functions. So let's talk about it for a second. The brain operates on electricity. I see lights in your house. I have a light bulb here. We know not to mess with electricity that's going to the light bulb, don't we?
Yeah.
We don't, yep. We don't fuss with that because that's sort of big electricity. Now, here's a cell phone that runs on electricity. Would we be afraid of that? Probably not. Okay, I'm with you. Probably not. So the brain operates on tiny little bits of electricity. Like, you've heard the term million?
Yeah.
Okay. And 1/1,000,000th of a volt would be such a tiny little piece of a volt that we wouldn't feel it. But that's about the level of the brain operating. So the brain runs on electricity. Now,
Cool.
yeah, it really does. I won't go into how that happens because you'll get that in school later on. So when you see me, your eyes see an image, it goes to the back where the visual part of the brain is, and that's all done with electricity.
Wow.
When you hear me, your ears way inside are converting that sound to electricity. And it goes to the hearing part of the brain. Similarly, when you taste some food, that chocolate ice cream that you eat, it's transferred to electricity and your brain goes, wow, Sammy's got chocolate ice cream and it's wonderful. So all of this stuff that your brain does, it's done with electricity. Now, here's, so this is another little story that I thought of that maybe would help us. So you're walking through the woods in Yellowstone National Park. You know about Yellowstone?
Yep.
What kind of big animals do they have there?
They have elk,
Elk,
bison.
bison, grizzly bears they have. And you and your mom are walking in Yellowstone and you see a grizzly bear. And he's not far away, he's close. So what do you say to your mom?
Run. I know. Stay.
Now, would you say it like that? Mom, we ought to run?
No.
No, you'd be loud, wouldn't you? And you'd right away be agitated. Your eyes did that to your whole brain. You saw this thing and you knew what it was. And it's got big claws and big teeth and it's scary. And you'd say, Mom, we gotta run right now. And you'd grab her. And all of that is done with your brain going zoop, 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 zoop. But it does it in so fast that you didn't even think about it. It all happened, right? Bam, just like that. So that's how fast the brain can work.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's all done with little electricity. And so now I have another prop. So you got to go with me because it's, you got to, if you don't understand it, then I'll explain it again. So this is a heating pad that my wife and I use in the wintertime to warm us up. And so this is the cell of the brain, this part.
Yeah.
And this is the part that transmits to the next cell. There's a filament or it's a hair-like thing that goes from cell to cell to actually do what we were talking about, because you saw something and then that picture of the grizzly bear had to go to the area of the brain that runs the muscles.
Mm-hmm.
And it had to go to the area of the brain that makes you talk. And it had to go to the area of the brain that gets you excited, that you're jumping up and down now. So the brain has different areas. It's one of the few organs in the body that has special areas to it, that they only do vision, they only do hearing, they only do speech, those cells.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm thinking where I want to go now here. Do you have any questions?
I do have a question, Dr.
Okay.
Shaw. What
Yeah.
is, you had that cord, or you
Yeah.
said a filament. Is that
Okay.
called something, or do we have like electrical cords running through our bodies? What do we call, what are those called in the body?
It's called an axon, A-X-O-N. It's kind of a funny new word for you, but all the nerves have connections with other nerves. And some nerves have tens or hundreds or maybe thousands of other nerves sending those cords or axons so that they can communicate.
Wow.
Cool.
So, yeah. So the nerve cells are called gray matter. Have you ever heard the term gray matter?
Uh-uh.
Okay. So it looks sort of gray. And the connections, those axons, is the white matter of the brain. And they actually look a little white. So now I've got some other ideas. Okay, so you've gone into a store, and do you have to open the store at Hilldale at the grocery store, or does it open for you?
Sometimes it opens.
Yeah,
For-
it opens for you. So that has a motion sensor, and it sees somebody coming and it opens up. Does it say hi, or does it tell you? No, it doesn't do anything else. Now, grandma is coming to your house.
Uh-huh.
Is grandma in the picture?
What?
Okay, how about a friend? Your friend?
Could say you have two grandmas.
Yeah, I have two grandmas.
Okay, two grandmas, good. So grandma's coming to the door, and your mom says, Sammy, go let grandma in. So you open the door, and are you going to say something?
Yeah.
Okay, you say, hi, grandma. And you'd say, it's good to see you. And you'd say, mom's in the kitchen. Come in. You might take her coat. So, and did your mom have to tell you to do all of those things?
Uh-uh.
No, because you already learned all that stuff. Yeah, you know how to greet people and to make them feel at home. So that's part of a very important process in the brain called memory, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And when we do multiple things, we call that multitasking. So you've done speech to grandma, you've taken her coat, you said, go to the kitchen. We have, what kind of pie would you serve grandma?
Chocolate.
Chocolate pie? Grandma, we have chocolate pie and hot chocolate, and mom has made your favorite coffee, and we're going to have a little party. So that's all based on memory and prior learning. Now, that's true for your muscles too. In the winter, do you ride your bike? Nah. So, but next spring, when you get on your bike, do you have to learn again?
No.
No, you got it. So that's all learned, and your muscles and your brain all know how to do that. So that's memory. Now, Jeff, do we have time to go back to epilepsy, or should we leave it alone?
In fact, Dr. Shaw, I was just going to ask, what happens when somebody has epilepsy? What happens with those nerves and muscles?
Okay.
I'm learning so much.
So in epilepsy, there could be damage to a small piece of the brain, or maybe there's no damage that we can see, but that piece of brain goes out of control. It's all the nerves have a way of managing themselves so they don't get overexcited. It's sort of like having mom around saying, Sammy, don't get too excited now, right? She doesn't want you jumping around and doing this, right, all the time. My wife even does that with me, if you can believe it. Okay, so she says, behave yourself. So some of these nerve cells don't behave themselves, and they get overexcited, and they go to parts of the body, and sometimes they go to what drives the muscles, and they make the muscles do things that we don't ordinarily do. And that would be called a seizure.
Mm-hmm.
So now, nowadays, we can treat that with medicine, and you might be in the ER, and you might be the doctor who has the patient with the seizure coming in, and you'd say, start an IV, put the needle in, and give this medication in the IV to the patient. IV meaning an intravenous right solution, medicine, and we'd be able to stop that seizure. And that's exactly what happens if people have too long of a seizure.
Wow.
Sammy, do you know, do you understand what a seizure is? Would you like
It's
to
when
work?
it's when you can't control yourself.
Okay, yes, all your muscles are
Yeah.
acting.
It might be jerking like this, or stiffening, or falling down and being unconscious. That's all that happens in that big seizure.
Well, you know what that sounds like, Dr. Shaw? You know, the shaking and the falling down. What does that sound like, Sammy?
The boy from the story.
Look at that. Okay. Very good. Okay. So at one time they thought it was a demon. So Dr. Shaw, why might they think it was a demon that was possessing this boy?
Well, that brings in the whole field of science, because we, years and years ago, like back 2,000 years ago, people didn't understand the world. And we had all sorts of stories about what thunder might be. Some of the Roman gods thought thunder would be the gods in heaven bowling. Yeah. So we didn't understand that. We didn't understand circulation of blood. I bet you could tell me a pretty good story about how blood circulates, and at your stage. But even the wise people who call themselves doctors 1,000 years ago really didn't understand circulation. They didn't understand the brain. I mean, even today, we say, I really feel your pain in my heart, right?
Yeah.
You say, that's where, and we give hearts on Valentine's Day because that's where our love is, in our hearts. It's actually in your brain. The love that you feel is in your brain. It's not in your heart. Your heart is the pump for the blood.
Oh.
But so that's left over from a time when people thought that when you saw something really that you loved, you might get a sensation in your chest that's where the love was. It was in your heart. But it's all in your brain. That's where we feel all the emotions. Happiness, sadness, it all comes from the brain. So do you have yeah, okay.
Okay, so that's fascinating. So Dr. Shaw, how long were you a doctor? You're still a doctor, but how long did you practice?
Well, let's see, I graduated from medical school in 1970.
Okay.
So that makes me pretty old. That'd be 57 years.
Okay, so you've been a doctor a long time, so you know everything there is to know about the brain, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We figured everything out.
Everything, absolutely. And I'm here to, yeah.
Sammy, he's joking, I think. So do we still have things to learn about the brain and the nervous system?
Oh, absolutely. It just keeps on going and going and going.
Okay. So Jesus had an understanding maybe that other people didn't. And when he healed the boy, but the big thing I want you to remember is that they thought it was a demon, and today we have a better understanding. Okay, so if you have a friend or you know a schoolmate or somebody who has epilepsy, and you see somebody having a seizure, I hope you have a better understanding. Is it scary the first time you see a seizure, Dr. Shaw?
Absolutely.
It is. So it's okay to be afraid and be scared, just like that grizzly bear. You don't understand it and it's kind of scary, but we have to remember, like Jesus, we didn't shun that boy. He said, bring the boy to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
there you go.
You know, there's our lesson of Jesus, you know, you're possessed by a demon, so I don't want you around. But
Yeah.
Jesus said, bring the boy to me,
Absolutely.
because we have a
Did-
better understanding. Go ahead, Sammy.
Did they have any type of medical tools back then or nothing?
You know, I think they had nothing. I think short of food and water, and of course, we've always liked smoke and sprinkling water on people, because baptism is a way of, right? The Jews would baptize people, and we thought that was a blessing. So they had ways that they were trying to give from one person to the other, but the
Right.
medication,
They would also use like herbs, and they make like teas and soak herbs and stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and different herbs made into teas would help people calm down.
Wow.
So that was their kind of medicine, even though they didn't understand what the chemical makeup of that. We'll have to have a class about chemical makeup of things, because that's fascinating.
yes, yes.
Okay, Sammy, I want to make sure you have a chance to ask Dr. Shaw any questions you might have, whatever you might have, or Sammy's mom.
I love questions.
Do you have some?
I want you to ask.
You don't have to have questions, but if you do,
I have one. What was the first like medical tool they had?
that's a good question.
That's a really good question. And you've already asked something that I really don't know.
So I'm gonna step in and say, Sammy, you know what I'm gonna say?
Yeah.
You need to do some research, young man,
Okay.
on medical tools, and find out early medical tools. Be a good research project for you, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. Okay. Dr. Shaw, do you have anything else? Or any questions
No,
for Sammy?
It's nice to meet you, Sammy. I hope we can meet again.
Yeah. You too.
Great. Okay, Sammy, what do we say to Dr. Shaw?
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Shaw.
Yeah,
Very
thank you.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Great. Okay, Sammy, we'll see you. Okay,
See
Ron,
ya.
if you hold on a second. Okay, bye, Sammy.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.